For today's video, I'll speak about point of differences in the midfield for the rest of the season. So a point of difference is basically, or also known as, people just say pod for short, but generally it's a player with less than 10% ownership. And you don't have to pick pods. In the past, I've picked a fair few pods in my team, and what happens is one of the pods gets injured, and then now you're behind because your player you thought that was a good pod gets injured, you lose points. So having too many can hurt you at times. But yeah, I guess it's nice to have some pods that the competition doesn't have if you can get a leg up on the competition. But for the most part, first and foremost, I want to make sure the player is a good player before bringing them in, before considering ownership. And generally with ownership, it's like if you're trying to win a league or you're trying to, you really need to make some sort of move to go up in the overall rank. That's generally when you consider ownership a bit more, but otherwise you're just trying to pick a good player. But it's still good to see which low ownership players that we can look at. So in the midfield, so Dev's not a pod anymore. We can go through some of these names. I'll skip over a lot of them. Lockie Scholl, I guess, being on a wing, he's probably not going to score enough, so won't worry about Scholl. But we're looking at the midfielders right now. So maybe we'll skip over the DPBs for now. So Cam Guthrie is an interesting one, and I quite like this pick. He's a player that I've thought about bringing in this week. However, I feel for my own sake that bringing in a player this expensive, it's going to hurt future upgrades. So, but nonetheless, I think this is a fine pick. He has the good buy. So it's basically, in that first buy, it's Guthrie, Boak, Duncan, and Tom Mitchell. Probably the most relevant ones, and I like Guthrie the most out of those. So he's one you can definitely bring in. I think he can. I'm not sure he can keep up 120, but his end to last year was pretty good, and yeah, he's definitely been able to improve playing pure midfield. So I do like him, and I think he's a great pod selection. So only 9%, he's definitely one you can go for. I'm not sure if there's any correlation with him and Dangerfield in the team. The sample size is too small, but he's looked great so far. A lot of possessions, a lot of tackling, so he looks good. And we can scroll down. Some of these are forwards. So Andrew McGrath, 94 average. Not sure. He seems like a low ceiling player, as in like he's not going to reach superstar. He might get to be an A grader, but I don't see standout attributes from him to suggest he can be a superstar. So I'm not sure he has it in him. At 5%. So for me, look, very cheap. But yeah, not what we want in the midfield right now. Yeah. And Josh Kelly's one. Okay, so 5%. This is a good one to talk about, but Josh Kelly's pretty simple. We're supposed to talk about this in the podcast, but what happened was the audio messed up, so we had to cut that bit out. So I'll speak about him now. So I see a lot of people considering Josh Kelly, and I guess for me, I'm just trying to go through the checklist of what I want in a premium. So durability, okay, it's been not too bad last year. Only missed the one game through injury, through soreness, and then he had a separate, I think it was concussion or something. So he's only had one minor issue in the past, 18 months. So that's not too bad. Still, it's Josh Kelly, so it's a bit of a concern. The main issue is role. So he seemed to get moved on a wing. Is that because Haynes was out and Daniels was injured? Are they going to move him at half forward at some point? Well, they said they like him there, so that's more than enough to say that this pick is too risky for mine. But yeah, it's a high risk, high reward pick. 500k for Josh Kelly. Scored well half forward, but not what we want. And yes, back to scoring well when on a wing, although it was against the Crows. So for me, this is not a safe pick. Yeah, role plus durability as well a little bit, but yeah, it's mainly, is he going to maintain that role? So probably a no from me. So too risky. Yeah, I just don't think he'll go like the 115 this year either. I don't know why. I just don't see it. They'll just mess with his role too much. Tom Green threw an average 86, so maybe that's what he is. Maybe he's an 85 average player going forward. They used him a lot forward, so he's not one we can look at, I don't think. But high ceiling, probably not at the stage of his development. Maybe I thought he was a bit more ahead than he actually was watching him in the preseason. But yeah, UE can't go for Tom Green. Yeah, I think they used him forward quite a bit. I really hope we get him forward though next year. That'd be great. Joel Selwood. So this is an interesting one because he's averaging 113, but it's clearly the age. He did this last year, hot start, got injured, and then was pretty poor after that. So this is a pretty hard pass on Joel Selwood. Those points are all gone, but he's playing very well. I don't see him. I'd be very surprised if he could sustain this for every game. I don't see it. Especially he's had a few durability issues the past year or two. Mitch Duncan. Oh, I don't know about this one because I think we've seen what happened. We saw this pick before. The main issue with Duncan is I don't trust the pick, and he can play outside. He can play half forward. Well, I think they want him in the guts right now. For 600k, I'd definitely prefer Guthrie. I think his role, he's a little bit more secure, and I just think he's a bit more sustainable given he's a few years younger than Duncan. So, yeah, I think I wouldn't go for Duncan. A lot of people jumped on him last year, and the second half of the year he was very underwhelming, and I don't think the midfield is the place to take risk like this, given his age especially. So it's a no to Mitch Duncan for me. Bradley Hill, no. Matty Rao, when he comes back, I assume he's probably going to drop to 400, and he'll have that bye. He'll have the first bye, but maybe he won't be back in the bye rounds. I'm not sure. So he's one at the back end of the year. He plays 2 games. Maybe it's round 15, round 16. He's struggling for money. You can go Matt Rao for 400k, and you never know what you get from him. So you don't know 100% what you get from him, but we know he has a very good ceiling and played very well last year. So yeah, because he's coming back from injury, it might be a bit hard to know what you're going to get. But look, it's Matt Rao, 400k, something you can consider if he's good in the first 2 games back. Adam Treloar, no, there's too much soft tissue injury history here. So look, scoring very well. 560k, I can see the appeal. One of the best accumulators in the league. So, not for me. Not simply straight up. It's the durability, and he already had a calf issue at the start of the year. So no, Pendlebury doesn't look very good to me this year. Probably 100 average player this year. Just the eye test looks, I don't know, making a few errors he wouldn't usually make. Still probably, is he their best player still? I'm not sure. Probably in their top 3. So, no to Pendlebury. Tim Kelly, absolutely not. Just too many down games from Kelly. You can't trust him. Andrew Gaff, Gaff is... I owned Gaff last year and it was horrible. He came good because Shuey and Yo went out when he was... So Gaff had to play inside. So playing inside, he's fairly durable, so he's actually okay on the inside, but you're probably looking at 105 to 110 if he's playing inside, but when they get players back, he'll probably go back outside, and I'm not sure what his role is right now. I just haven't watched him, but I assume that he's getting a bit of inside time because of injuries. So when Gaff gets tagged, because he's probably the one they tag, it's a guaranteed 60. So yeah, how long does he play inside for? I don't know. I haven't looked at Gaff too much, but all I know is I owned him last year and he was very frustrating. Can't be trusted to... He's never really been that 110 average player, and I don't see how that changes now. And, he's on a hot patch and he's still not going that 110. So we need 110 from these guys. Not for me, Andrew Gaff. So, look, maybe your M8 can go 105, but for me, I have Brayshaw. Some people might have Taranto. Even Tom Mitchell could be around that mark. So probably most people seem to have already one of those players. So Gaff, not for me. I prefer Brayshaw as well. High ceiling. Darcy Parish. Okay, this is interesting. 3-run average of 116. So hopefully they keep playing him in the guts because they've had a tendency to shove him forward at times. Back into last year, they used him a lot in the midfield. So I don't mind. You could do worse in Parish. I wouldn't do it. Seems a little risky, but yeah, really good clearance player. Like when he's in there, I think he's one of the best clearance players in the league. I don't mind Parish. Really good stoppage player. Haven't watched a whole lot of him, to be honest. I watched a little bit of him last year because I wanted to bring him in. seems to fade in and out of games a little bit, and he had a big preseason, so he was one that was talked up to have a breakout season. Started a bit slow, now pure midfield role, playing really well. You know, it's not the worst pod, but I couldn't do it, I don't think. It seems a little risky, but wish he was a forward, but not to be. But yeah, in the right age bracket as well, for the 5th or 6th year, so yeah, not one I'd go for, but not the worst one on this list. Okay, Hugh McGluggage. Oh, this is an interesting one. Is he playing inside or outside? I don't even know. I'll have to check his CBAs. You know what? We might do it now. Okay. I haven't seen him in any teams, so something that I should have checked before. That's a 0. Looking like a 0 CBAs. Brisbane. Oh, 23%. He must be kicking goals, so yeah, they had an easy win. I think they played Port. So for me, McGluggage is a weird one. Threw an average 128. High ceiling player, highly talented player, better than Taranto and McGrath from his draft. Seems very expensive for a guy that's not getting a lot of CBAs. So he's not one I've really looked at too much, to be honest. A lot of these players, it's just like, you see him a little bit, but you don't take too much notice. But one to keep an eye on, I think. But for that price, I think I'd rather a 600k mid, like a Guthrie or even a Lions or something. Sarong too inconsistent. Maybe a little bit of second year blues for Sarong. Mundy's too old. As good as he is right now, it's unbelievable form. I can't bring in a 34-year-old. Wines is playing okay, but this seems like best case, like 105. Nothing else really here. Lions is only 2%. Lions is a great pick, I think. One probably, it's going to be hard with his buy, I think, in the midfield. The second and third round buys, or the 13 and 14 buy rounds, are going to be pretty difficult. But yeah, so Lions is an interesting one. One you can go for. One I definitely endorse for 600k. So we've seen he's just a very consistent player. He did drop a few, I think 2 really poor scores last year, but for the most part, he's been able to build every year as a player in his prime right now. Watched an interview with him the other day, speaks pretty well. So one at the Crows where I actually picked him in the forward line when he was at the Crows for like 260k or something like that. And he was actually really, really good for me because I knew he could score on the inside, but the Crows just wouldn't give him enough time. They played him forward. He was in and out the side. It's always been in his DNA to be a good contested ball winner. So, and he's actually quite damaging forward as well. So for me, with no Lockie Neal, seems to have taken he's the number 1 mid now. I'm not sure if he gets attention or not. I assume that would go to McLuggage. But yeah, this is definitely a pick you can go for. He's competing with Walsh, I guess, and Guthrie. So I like Walsh, but I think, yeah, Lions is a fantastic pick and a player that I'll be looking to get in if things go that way. LDU has been so disappointing. 76 average. Chera's an interesting one. Chera's one you could jump on very cheap because he had that really poor score. So 400k trying to finish off the midfield. I think Chera's a player you could go for if he's later in the season if you're struggling for money. Ben Key's playing great for the Crows, but probably a sub-primo in the midfield. Shame he's not a forward. That's pretty much it. So yeah, a few interesting picks here.